What if I told you that the road to success isn't paved with degrees, but with relentless determination? Our guest today could have been a neurosurgeon, but instead, he chose the high risk, high reward path of entrepreneurship. One that took him from struggling to afford McDonald's to shopping for jets and private islands. He's built and scaled multiple businesses across industries from real estate to AI and biotech. He's fascinated by the future, gene therapies, quantum computing, space exploration, and whatnot. You name it, he's invested in it. So, how does a first generation millionaire entrepreneur go from zero to global impact? We'll find out together today. So, welcome Steve to the show.
Ash, thanks for having me on. Pleasure to be here.
Great stuff. Do you have a favorite quote, something that inspires or motivates you would like to share with our audience?
I feel like I coined this phrase. I'm not sure, so I don't want to. If anyone else out there has a trademark, please don't come after and sue me. But one that I like to constantly use for myself as well as other people that I'm consulting with is success is not linear and success is relative. Meaning, obviously, not to go into that, you can use your own interpretation of that, and it's relatively self-explanatory. But what it means to me is um, success looks different to everybody, right? And success is somewhat of a moving target. When you reach your initial goals, you might be surprised that now I've accomplished this. That feels great. Now, what's next? So the goalpost might move a little bit, but it is relative to every single individual. Everybody has a different variation of what success looks like to them. And success is never linear. It's never a straight upwards trajectory to achieving those goals. You're going to inevitably hit some setbacks. So I really like that quote. I use it all the time, and I feel like hopefully that will add a little bit of context to your listeners.
Definitely. No, definitely. And I couldn't agree more with that because not just the definition, journey, and then what exactly it looks like, but also whom you're experiencing it with, right? That is also an
Right.
important element to it. Great. So Stephen, would you be able to share with our audience your early journey? You don't come from wealth or a business background. What gave you the confidence to take the entrepreneurial leap?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it was a feeling of an innate desire for more. I feel is
Mhm.
the best way to describe it. It's really hard when you're retrospectively looking back at what was that initial catalyst. I cannot give you a specific aha moment. Right? There was nothing that leaps out as X occurred, X circumstance that propelled me into action, into that first business. For me, I didn't grow up with much, and I have a lot of grace for my parents. Obviously, they did the best that they could. Large family, growing up in the Midwest. Um, Dad was a salesman. They did their best with the tools and what was accessible to them at the time. So I have a lot of grace for them, of course, not ragging on them, but didn't grow up with a lot. Didn't grow up with business acumen, a background. I did not have the funds to even go to school. I obviously was at a crossroads at one point of, okay, so I've always been fascinated with neurology, with anatomy. Biology has always fascinated me from since I was started looking into it, primarily using online resources, which are readily available to this generation. Wasn't available, 10, 20 years ago, which is something that we have at our fingertips that, our parents and grandfathers didn't. It kind of takes those excuses away when you think about it. But to get back to the point I was making, really was entertained by that thought process, and I really started thinking of, okay, what is my potential, what am I capable of? I saw one path, which was the tried and true path. I could go through 10 to 14 years of schooling and become a neurosurgeon, which was definitely something that interested me. uh, love neurology. The human brain is absolutely fascinating, the complexity of it. But when you start thinking about that future and what that entails, what it looks like, you realize that it's somewhat of a cap. Um, and I have a lot of respect for neurosurgeons, neuroscientists. What they're doing is absolutely invaluable to the human species, us as a race. That said, I felt like I could do more going the entrepreneurial route. Now that's a bigger risk that you're taking, right? So that is one thing that I struggled with throughout my career was, did I make the right decision? Um, as opposed to so taking a bet on yourself with no support system,
Mm,
no MBA behind your name, no um, parents with the financial backing to make sure that if you slip, they're there to catch you. Did I make the right decision? That's something that I've wrestled with, especially through the failures, through the hard times. You really start thinking, okay, did I screw up? Uh, Taking that bet on myself. And I have to say, I'm fortunate to be in a position today where I can 100% say that I am so glad that I took that route. I am now in a position, luckily, where I can marry my two passions. My passion for biology, the human body, neurology, technology, and I get to pursue it from a entrepreneurial path.
mm, mm. Interesting, very interesting. And you said that there was not an aha moment, but I would like to um, push you a little bit and come up with,
Feel free.
would you be able to share, would you be able to recollect your memories, and if you have to concentrate three turning points in your life, what
Mm.
would be these three turning points? And then later on, once we list these points, I would like to go through each of them and talk about what was the story behind each of them, if that
Um,
interests you.
no, amazing. I feel like I need to be laying on a couch with a nice, comfortable pillow. We're going in deep, guys. Okay, good, solid question, and I appreciate it. So let me think about it for a moment, because those defining moments throughout your career, there are a lot of them.
Mm,
And I also am young. I'm in my early to mid 30s. So I still have a lot of learning left in me, a lot of turning points left. When you the fun thing about life, an entrepreneurial life, especially or particularly, when you think you know it all, life slaps you in the face.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that is one thing that I've learned. Now, up to this point, um, I'd say one, again, I can't isolate a specific turning point in my early years. I just knew that I always wanted more. And I chose, so my first job when I was a teenager, 15, 16, I believe, I was a grocery bagger
Hmm.
at a local grocery store in Kansas City, Missouri. Um, so that was interesting. It was like really one of my first uh, positions where I really felt, um, I don't want to say oppressed because I wasn't really a rebel. I did everything and I wanted to make sure I was the best employee possible,
Hmm.
mainly from a competitive perspective. I was very competitive and I wanted to be better than everyone else. I wanted people to notice that my work was better. And I've always had that innate desire and passion and drive from a competitive perspective. And I do not know where that comes from. I believe it's intrinsic. Um, that said, without acknowledging or narrowing it down to a specific catalyst, I did decide to take that leap as a teenager into my first business without knowing anything. I had no idea what I was going to be doing, um, or what I was doing at the time, but I saw an opportunity, I jumped in, and then I'm glad that I did. Now, from a turning point, I think my second business was a turning point. Um, for me is when I decided to leave Kansas City,
Hmm.
and I moved to Arizona. For me, that was huge because it was the first time that I was actually, um, I felt like taking a step forward.
Hmm.
For me, what was right for me, mainly because I hated the snow and ice. I was never a fan of snow and ice. I needed warm weather, so I chose the desert.
Yeah.
And ever since, I've always gravitated towards warm climates. I try to uh, minimize my exposure to the cold, wet climates as much as possible.
Mhm.
So that was a turning point for me. I think the biggest and third turning point in my life, um, I guess the second one would be where I started that second business and started getting some early success.
Mhm.
And then I had a big setback. I think that was a huge turning point for me because I needed the humility.
Mm.
I needed that lesson to realize that, hey, a little bit of early success does not dictate the rest of your career, and you have to uh, enter life and go through life with a sense of humility and service. I really believe that. I think that was a huge turning point when I got my first big failure, my first big loss, my first big setback. It really kind of hits you in the face, and that's when you start questioning everything, and then you find a way to move forward.
Mm.
So for me, that was huge.
Got
Um,
it. Got
my
it.
th- my third that I would point out um, would be when you reach the point. And can you still see me? Okay, I
Yeah.
just
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, good. That camera went out for 1 second, but there you are. Um, so when you reach the point of what many would call success, many would call good enough. When you reach the point of I no longer have to look at my bank statement, my bank account, I don't need to check my balance. If you want something, you can purchase it. The sense of absolute security, knowing that you've made it, you've arrived, you have reached a certain point of success. I think for me, the biggest key turning point was that moment when I realized once you get to the point where you have 15, $20 million at your disposal, there's nothing that you can't buy, right?
Mm.
And then it becomes a point of, okay, so am I just doing this for more? What am I really doing this for? Am I making a difference? If I died today, did I leave an impact for the world, or was I just working for myself? I think I had a lot of introspection at that point of, okay, so after years of blood, sweat, and tears, trial, errors, successes, failures, I've now reached a point where I need to figure out what am I doing? How can I give back? How can I actually make a difference? I think that was a huge point, turning point for me.
Mm.
And I still live by that. So now I'm at the point where, okay, how can I really take my experiences, leverage those, and uh, actually make a difference, do something? What can I focus on to accelerate humanity into a prosperous future and be a part of that solution in some way?
Got it. Got it. And help other people,
Exactly.
which is like exactly what you want to do. Great. And I think listening to you, the three different, very, I think you got all these moments in your life quite early compared to other guests whom I have interviewed from a time frame perspective. And I think our listeners would be glad to uncover the second moment in your life where you wanted to leave Kansas City, um, get it, you started your second business where this traction started getting. Would you be able to uncover the journey starting from when you moved out, then what motivated you to start this new business? What was that business? And then what strategies you use to get more traction specifically, because that's something which our founders struggle a lot in order to get more traction, more people,
Yeah.
eyeballs on their product or services. And then if you could followed by that share the success story, that would be great.
Of course. So that business was a health and fitness concierge business. So
Hmm.
I niched down and decided, okay, so who's your target demographic? Who do you want to go after? Who's your ideal avatar, your ideal customer that's going to utilize these services? And so I chose the affluent individuals, primarily based in Scottsdale, Paradise Valley, and the Arizona area.
Mhm.
And then what can you provide them that they can't access elsewhere? So you have to have a differentiating factor, and then you also have to have a ideal target demographic that can happily pay for the services, right? So
Mhm.
isolating who you're going after and giving them something of great value that they can't acquire elsewhere,
Mhm.
is really the ground starting step to a long term successful business. So what I did was when I went to Arizona, I wanted to be. So I realized, okay, so I started putting this business plan together, and I realized, okay, so we've got people that enjoy getting massage therapy. They like yoga. They go and use dietitians. So I thought of a concierge consolidated approach that gave them everything in a customizable package, everything that was specifically designed for their health and wellness. And why not bring it to them? Make it a
Mm.
concierge model to where if you have a client, whether it be an individual, a couple, an entire family that wanted to really focus on their health and wellness, they had the affluent means to do so, we could come to them. We could create a dietary plan with our own uh, in house staff, and then
Mm.
we would even offer personal private chef services if we wanted to prepare the meals for them. So now we have the diet covered. If you wanted a
Mm.
personal trainer, we could do that at the gym of your choice, or we could do that in home if you have the space to do it. A lot of people out there in Scottsdale, Paradise Valley have their own home gyms, which is nice. So, and then do you want to incorporate massage therapy for it? Along with it, just to obviously not just for stress and alleviating the mental, but also the physical as well as you're going through this program. So
Mm.
I had a pretty comprehensive approach to this strategy. And then prior to launching and pulling the trigger, I wanted to be able to do as much of it as possible. So I actually taught myself how to cook, just and diet. I already had a preliminary understanding of the human body, anatomy, neurology, just from my own learning from online resources back then. But I wanted to take it a little bit a step further. My personal training license, and that was relatively easy. Just
Mhm.
with very little studying, I just took a test, got my license there, and I was good to go from a personal training perspective. And then I also went and got my massage therapy license. I
Mm.
went through a course in Arizona, and that way, if I was going to hire the best, I wanted to not just be the best or as good as I can possibly be, but I wanted to know what was the best, right? What actually should I be looking for when I'm actually
Mm.
making these hiring decisions? So that's not necessary to take all those steps. I decided to go that route. And then when I started hiring, I implemented very strict standards to make sure that I had the best quality massage therapists, the best quality estheticians, the best dietitians, and I could actually speak to each one of those categories and set a hiring standard in place. So that's what I did. Launched it, went very well. Ended up scaling it uh, outside to multiple states. Ended up shutting that one down because there were some potential legal issues. The primary, just to give you an idea, and it's something that I didn't think about, which is something that your listeners probably need to really understand. When you think you've covered all the bases, something's going to shock and surprise you. So that thing for this business model, and the thing that ultimately was the determining factor for me not to scale it further, was um, I had a couple of my employees based in Chicago
Mhm.
that were accused of doing something very unethical in a client's home,
Mm.
right? So that's something when you say it, we didn't have cameras. There's no one to corroborate client. I was not able to say no, this did not happen, even though I'm pretty sure it didn't. Right? That accusation has to be taken seriously, and then you have to say, okay, so what are the legal ramifications if this client chooses to sue the company? Right? And then the word gets out. It not only hurts our reputation, but it could also start a Me Too movement. It could start multiple other people saying, hey, if she got a payout, I can do that as well.
And I
So
will get
that
a pet out.
it,
Yeah.
it opened the door to a huge flaw in the entire business model. It worked so well, and it did really, really well for me. But once I was aware of this issue, I decided to shut that business down and transition into a new one. But that is kind of a long, routed story to just kind of give you how, okay, what was the thought process behind it? What was the path to it? And
Mm.
then ultimately, what what caused it to scale and decline.
Got it. Good. Can I go a little bit back? And I know that we are short of time, but I want to pick that particular part where you did quite a lot of research and got some licenses before starting the thing. When you said that it started going well, mostly it doesn't happen in founder's life. What were you doing? Are you going to these VIP meetings, handing over your card? Are you doing big banner advertisement in front of these highways where these millionaires travel? Or you're at the yacht where they're having parties and then making friends with them? What exactly was your strategy for that?
So I had two. My initial strategy was, and I'm going to omit the name, just so they don't come after me later.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
obviously, there's a statute of limitations here, so it wouldn't even matter anyway. But initially, what I did was I joined a high-end gym
Mm-hmm,
in Scottsdale, Arizona, as a massage therapist and personal trainer,
mm-hmm,
and I started uh, working with the clientele, seeing, kind of doing a validation. What I did initially, my initial client acquisition strategy was to actually get market validation.
mm-hmm,
So what I did was I joined a high-end gym. Um, I'll omit the name currently, but what I did was just join as a massage therapist and a personal trainer. So I hit kind of both, best of both worlds there. And what I did was I wanted to see if what I had, what I was building was of actual interest, right?
mm-hmm.
Do clients actually want? Because a lot of entrepreneurs make an assumption without getting validation, and they can get really butthurt very quickly and lose a lot of money. I always recommend, before you do any sort of launch, validate your assumptions, right? Make sure that what you're building, what you're offering, people actually want. Just
Mm.
because it sounds like an amazing idea to you, what if, uh, in this example, what happens if everyone doesn't really want people to come to them, right? They don't really
Mm.
need a consolidated resource. They're good with the status quo. They're good with things as they are, right? I like my gym membership. I like my personal trainer. I like going somewhere instead of having it at the house. I don't have the space for it, right? There's all these considerations that you have to verify. So what I did was went to this high end facility and I started putting feelers out. Got really good feedback. A lot of people were very interested. They said, "Wow, that actually sounds great. I've never heard of something like that.
Mhm,
I actually have a gym. That would be great." So what would that look like? And then I would just say, "Well, let me. I haven't launched it yet. I'm still in the process of hiring. So let me get your info, and then once we launch, you'll be one of my first phone calls,
mm,
and I'll give you a deal, right? Since you're one of the first." So that's was my initial strategy, was validate that the demand is there, right? And once you validated that the demand is there, then you can actually pull the trigger and start the launch process. So the growth stage, what I did was, I'm a huge fan of offering an incredible service and then incentivizing referrals. So I build that into as many business models as I possibly can. Not every business model works. There's multiple variables that goes into an efficient and effective referral program. However, it worked very well for this, mainly because if you think about it, in those tight knit communities, once you get a few people, they talk about it. And then if you incentivize them to talk about it, now that incentive is going to be different based on your revenue, what's your profit margin, right? What can you actually provide? What's your existing If you're doing online marketing, what does it cost you to acquire a client? Okay, so now if it costs you $1,000 to acquire each client, that means you could essentially have up to $1,000 to offer somebody to refer a business, and the referrals are stickier; they stay, which is incredible. So that was my growth strategy, was through the incentivized referral program. Worked very well in almost every market that I expanded into, and yeah, that's how I started, validated, and scaled.
Steven, this is the golden nugget I wanted to get out of you, because that's what I wanted to share with our listeners. Like, what are the strategies, early days, the successful founder use in order to actually get more attention, more traction, and then obviously get where they wanted to reach. So this is really, really helpful. Thank you for that. So let's move to the next part of our interview. So you mentioned that the second so after this business became very, very successful, you had a setback. Now this is something which I personally feel that we should have a platform where we can share it with others, because this is very crucial. Because if we know that a co-founder or a colleague or a friend who has gone through similar kind of situation, and what it cost them to get out of it, or how much they had to like suffer in terms of time, how long they have to suffer, things like that, then it gives them not just the the thinking process in the direction that, okay, I can do it. It will be difficult, but yeah, there is a way to get out of it. But also strategize how they want to, navigate through this challenge. So would you be able to share that part of your life where you had the setback? What exactly was the setback, and how did you deal with it? And do you regret about it or not? Because that's very
Zero
important.
regrets. That's one thing. Of course, you wrestle with that, and that's
Mm,
okay, right? You
mm,
have to look at, okay, so I got a setback. Everything was going fantastic until it wasn't, right?
mhm,
That's part of business. Unfortunately, it's inevitable. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you have to kind of prepare yourself, and there's no real way to mentally prepare yourself for the challenges until they rear their ugly heads, right?
mm,
Um, that said, when they do, even if you have some level of preparedness, or even if you have some experience with loss, failures of the past, or successes, um, those past experiences don't necessarily dull the sting when something occurs again, and it's going to be something that you never foresaw. In most cases, sometimes if you're lucky, you'll have a little bit of foresight, and you'll get a little warning, and you'll be able to prepare mentally and physically, whatever you need to do, business strategize for that occurrence. In
mm,
most cases, 99% of the time, that is not the case, and it's going to happen, whether it's the government rolling out a new regulation that, whoa, where did that come from? My entire business model is now obsolete. All
mm,
the competitors are eating up my business. Now, what do I do? I have, in my career, I have had many of those moments, many of those setbacks. I have been betrayed by partners. I have been sued. There's many things that just kind of slap you in the face as, whoa, where did that come from? I thought I was doing everything right. um, this wasn't something that I did necessarily to achieve this result. So why is this happening to me? Once you get over the why is this happening to me, you have to say, okay, so how do I move forward? And a
mm,
lot of times it's hard to move forward when you suffer a setback.
mm,
The mental fortitude has to be there. And I say this not to scare your listeners into not taking the entrepreneurial leap, because I guarantee you, as long as you're doing your heart's in it and you're doing it for the right reasons, it's worth it. It's worth the setbacks. It's worth the hardship, and it's definitely something that I recommend you do if you have that mental fortitude to, when things inevitably happen, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make this a reality, to make this a success for whatever the reason you are pursuing it. Um, to your point, I have so many. Trying to pick one setback is very difficult. For example, I was developing a application that was the idea was to develop the application, acquire a bunch of users for it. It was a fintech application that consolidated all of your bills, right? That exists now. It didn't when I was developing it. I was beat to market. I put a lot of time, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into the development. I spent a lot of my own capital developing the MVP, getting market validation, and then the idea behind it was obviously a consolidated platform, right? One place that will, through API integration, will connect to all of your various bills, and you can manage it, pay it all in one app. There are now many apps that do that. A lot of banks do that, but the idea was to build it, validate it, and then sell it. It was a quick flip concept. I was beat to market by a company that did the exact same thing that I did. They had a tremendous amount of success, and they had an amazing multi-million dollar exit that should have been mine. Right, I put all that time in. I had an amazing idea, validated it, and then someone else beat me to the punch. Right, so that's just one example. Right, so the entire all that time out the window, all that energy, the revenue that you dump into it, and then also, mostly, maybe more importantly, the mental hit that you take, right? The, oh my gosh, that could have been me. It's hard to be happy and excited to see someone else's success when you know that that same success could have been yours and you put so much work into it, and it's very difficult to get over that. So I spent a couple weeks licking my wounds after that before deciding, okay, what's next. um, how you get through those types of setbacks. That one was detrimental. That project was dead. All right. So once it was dead in the water, what's next? You have to pick yourself up and look for the next opportunity. You cannot dwell. You cannot say, this was necessarily my failure. I had a validated good product. Now, how do I get to that next part of this journey? You might be on mute again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, there you are.
Okay, great. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Steven. So what one thing I do on my show is share the journey which the, the, the guest has shared with us in a pictorial form, and then potentially, there's a saying like a picture is 1,000 words compared to
Yeah,
words, something like that. More
it's a
than
good saying.
1,000 words. Yeah. So basically, just wanted to reiterate, when you started, you didn't had any um, uh, background or any financial backing support from your parents' side, normal lifestyle. You wanted to get into neurology and biology because that's one of your favorite topics to get into, and you had two paths to choose from. One is tried and tested path where you could become a neurologist, or the second one where you could get into the entrepreneurship where you had to jump through all the hoops one by one. But there you go, high risk, high reward, right? So you chose to go through the path two, which is why we are here today and talking. And then you shared a couple of things from your life where you had these uh, moments which you think are kind of pivotal moments in your life where it actually made a change towards the perspective you're looking into your life. For example, the first business you have launched after being a grocery bagger for a while and making sure that you're doing the job perfect compared to other people. And then the second one, when you started thinking to leave the city, and then you did, and then you started your second business, which eventually became one of the biggest success in your life. And then the setback you had after that, and then the third pivotal moment where you had this sense of fulfillment, success, where you wanted to like start helping the community. You also mentioned about the ways you started the second business, which was pivotal, how you actually uh, targeted the demographies, what are the different factors influencing this particular business. And there, your front side of your funnel was mostly the people who fit into that criteria. And I love the strategy you used there, because I think that's one of the things which all the founders should do after they have a market which they want to get into, as agreed upon upon different research. And then again, the setback which you shared with us, you got betrayed by your partner, you got sued, you got beat to the market. But the learning from it is not necessarily all the past experiences are aligned with what you're going to do with the setback, but it gives you a little bit of idea, and obviously motivation that this is not the end. Is there anything else you think we missed or you want to add into this before we move to the next one?
Well, that is in no way a comprehensive overview, but I love it. It's a great diagram, and it definitely follows the path, at least through the early days of my career, for sure.
Perfect. Thank you so much for saying that. Great. So let's move to the next and the last part of our interview, which is a quick fire round. I've got six quick fire questions for you. Don't feel that you have to answer them. If you don't know, just let me know, and then we can move to the next one. But it would be good to get some feedback from you on these questions.
All right,
So,
let's do it. Fire
questions.
away.
Yeah, great stuff. Number one, what's the top three strategies a founder should use before even thinking to start a business or startups?
Market validation is number one. Before you pull the trigger to launch, make sure that there is a demand for your product. Um, Even before that, I would say that's step two. Step one would be make sure that you are differentiated, that you offer a value that your target demographic currently does not have access to or limited access to. So if the demand is significantly higher, or you feel that that is the case for what you are going to be offering, absolutely go for it and then validate it.
Got it. Okay. What book would you recommend to our audience and why?
Ooh, especially for this audience, I'm going to say Ready, Fire, Aim. There's a lot of amazing books that I could list for you, but that one is incredible because I like the entire concept. A lot of people do it backwards. A lot of people do Ready, Aim, Fire, right? So if you have an idea, a lot of people get trapped in analysis paralysis, right? They're
Mhm.
thinking about it. They want it to be perfect. There is no perfect time. There is no perfect place. And there's no perfect way to actually start a business. As long as you take those steps that I just mentioned, you know that you have something that's differentiated, right? You have something that people want. Do not try to over analyze and make it perfect before firing, before pulling the trigger, because you can always optimize as you go, and you should consistently optimize every single business, operations, sales, and you should always look to hire what you're not good at. That's one thing that I learned early on. I was not good
Mhm.
at HR. I was not good at certain things. So you need to be able to understand what I'm weakest at and then hire to fill those gaps. But obviously, the first thing you have to do is take the plunge. I challenge all of your listeners, if you have an amazing idea and you've validated it, just get started. Find a way to pull that trigger and just know that you're going to be optimizing that business for as long as you're running it.
Definitely, definitely. Great. And what's one attribute or characteristic in your mind of a successful founder?
Resilience, hands
Mhm.
down. That is everything that we've gone over today is just solidifies the fact that you are inevitably, if you're going to go the route, which I think a lot of your listeners are, at least at that point, they're either starting their businesses, they've recently started their businesses, or they're thinking about starting a business. Um, Regardless of where you're at, even if you have early success, you are inevitably going to hit a roadblock. You're going to hit a challenge. It is part of the game. Now, it's a fun part of the game because that is what builds character. That is what makes this whole thing fun. You can't just be happy and successful as all get out all of the time. That's not how business works. So resilience is the one key attribute that you have to have. And if you do not have the ability, if you are someone, my word of caution to your listeners, if you are thinking about it, if you're on the fence and you are not someone that handles stress, if you know for a fact, I do not handle stress, I crumble, either get a partner that can handle that stress or do not take the plunge, because this game will eat you alive, and it could be detrimental to your mental health if you get in, you get hardship right off the bat, and you don't have the mental fortitude or resilience to power through.
Got it. That's really good to know, because a lot of people think, oh, the product will work itself and then the money will solve everything, but that's not the case, isn't it?
That is not the case.
Yeah, yeah, great. What's your favorite personal productivity tool or habit?
Habits themselves. I wouldn't say I have one specific one, and it's actually constantly changing. I'm constantly looking to how do I optimize my life, my time. A lot of people, there's a plethora of books, tools, things that you can look at for time management. There are apps for that. Um, Time management is important, but more importantly, get into healthy habits and get into them early. And when you start stacking habits, it's incredible. Don't overwhelm yourself, because if you're just getting started and you need to start, kick the day off with reading 30 minutes about your key industry, right? So 30 minutes, just pick a time every single morning. It has to be the same time. I don't care if you overslept by 3 hours. I'm sorry, overslept. You were awake an extra 3 hours working on your business. Get up when that alarm goes off. That is crucial. Don't negotiate with yourself. When you start creating habits and then start stacking habits, you will be amazed at the difference that it makes in your personal life and your business. And you should have those habits that you're stacking from a personal perspective and the business as well.
Got it. Great stuff. And what's a new or a crazy business idea you would love to pursue if you had time?
Um, AI implementation, in that would be a B2B concept. So that's something that I think you could easily get into. Obviously, right now, we're looking at an incredible change that's happening to the workforce. Uh,
Mm.
a poll was done, 40% of countries are looking at implementing or decreasing their workforce over the next 5 years or so. 40% of companies, that's a lot of companies from a
Yeah.
global perspective. And I think a lot of those are going to happen in China. It's going to happen in the US and a few other developed countries as well, primarily. All of those businesses, the ones, look for businesses that I would say do not have a CTO, right? They do not have someone who would actually implement, but they want to leverage AI agents, right? So they want to, for whatever their purposes are. They could be for manufacturing, it could be humanoid robots, it could be virtual AI agents. That is going to be a massive, massive industry and a high ticket one. If you can
Mhm.
approach, if you can learn everything about implementing AI agents into specific industries. Again, niche down, find an industry. There's a lot of them, and then you can approach those businesses and say, "Hey, I can do always have three benefits. I can reduce your overhead cost by X uh, on average. I can do X, Y, and Z." If you can approach them with those benefits and offer um, a package that you could charge easily $20,000 to $50,000 or more for to come in and implement this. If you can show the benefits that you are implementing AI agents into this business is going to do, and they're generating 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, and they're going to increase their profitability by 5% or decrease their overhead by 20%. To them, that's a bargain. They will happily part ways with $20,000 to $50,000, especially if they don't know how to do it themselves. They're working on antiquated systems, processes, and now you're offering them a solution. And hey, guess what? Everybody else is going to be doing this in the next year. You're either going to become obsolete or you're going to jump on the bandwagon. I can help you do that. That, I think, would be an exciting idea. I think it's already happening. If I'm going to be completely honest with you, I think there are going to be those implementation services for businesses out there. But I think that would be something that you could easily get started, easily get market validation, You could even learn how to do it, offer two businesses to do it for free in exchange for reviews, testimonials, and then leverage that, use that. Hey, this is what I did for these two companies. I can do the same thing for yours. And all you did was spend some time on it. And they fronted the bill. You saved them XYZ. Take that, whatever you did for the business, use that as your marketing. And I think you have a legitimate multi-million-dollar business.
Perfect. Awesome. Love that idea. What's an interesting or fun fact about you that most people don't know?
I'm a neat freak. Uh, so a lot of people may think that I'm just very busy, and that goes back to habits. I am the person that I need the floors constantly clean. I need everything in its place. I do wipe down my mirrors and my bathroom sink every single day after I use it. So if I'm brushing my teeth, guess what? That sink is getting wiped down. I want to make sure that I have a spick and span home environment for every single day. And that helps. Just knowing that I've done that sets me up for success when I'm tackling business.
That is amazing. Thanks for sharing that. Steven, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your story, unpacking, all these years of building business, all the setbacks, some of the ups and downs. If people want to connect with you, get in touch, if people want to learn from you, what's the best way to do it?
Just reach out to me via LinkedIn is probably the easiest way. I spend the vast majority of my days poring over pitch decks and analyzing different various opportunities in the tech space. So while I'm nerding out over that, I also do some consulting. So if you're interested in, hey, picking my brain about, I've got an idea. What do you think about this? You have a pitch deck, you have an idea. The best way to get in touch with me is just reach out via LinkedIn. I do not personally monitor it. I have a VA that does that. Soon it will be an AI agent. We'll see about that. There's that transition for you. But yeah, that will get passed to me, and I will do my best to assist if I can.
Great stuff. Steven, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your inspiring journey and the impactful work you're doing through the serial entrepreneurship and helping tech companies. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on Founders Podcast.
Ash, likewise. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a fun conversation, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your 2025.